May the road rise up to meet you, and the wind be on your back. May the sun shine warm upon you, and the rain fall gently down.
Hello, and welcome back. Today we want to take a look at week 4 of the Road Rising series, which is going to cover days 15 to 21. Or if you have the edition of the Road Rising that follows the calendar, then you'd be looking at January 15 to the 21st. Things have gotten tough for the pilgrim this week, particularly after meeting a fellow traveler who seems to have gone crazy in his obsession to stay on a schedule he had apparently made for himself. We'll see in a couple of days that the poor man died in a forest fire rather than wait until the danger had passed. The encounter was enough to convince the pilgrim to stop and reassess. As a practical exercise, he rearranged his backpack, throwing away a lot of what he used to consider essentials. But now in a new light, they seem nothing more than, just extra burdens. His resolve is put to the test when he sees smoke off in the distance, warning him of an approaching forest fire. The word he gets from God is not exactly the one he was expecting nor hoping for. Let me read the account in his own words from day 18 in his journal. He writes this: "It was warm today. The barometer was dropping, and although I could see clouds gathering in the distance, there was no sign of rain anytime soon. Once in a while I heard the distant rumble of thunder, but it stayed in the distance. Then, as evening approached, I came to a high place in the trail and saw this thick column of smoke off in the distance, ahead and to the left of where my trail was leading, a bushfire. Scanning the skies, I could see that the wind was moving from right to left. If that remained unchanged, perhaps the fire would move on, away from me. But I had had some experience with bushfire. I knew how quickly conditions could change, and if the wind pushes a fire toward you, there's no outrunning it. A familiar lump formed in the back of my throat. I'd known this feeling before. Fear. Not the kind of fear that hits hard and fast, like a crouching mountain lion. If that were the case, the adrenaline would start pumping and the body would react instantly. Fight or flight. But this kind of fear was more like the slowly rising needle on a gas pressure gauge. Danger, but not now. Soon. What should I do, Lord? I know now, even as I knew then, that there are several possible answers to a question like that. Run for your life is one possibility, and at the time probably the answer I would have liked most to hear. Or if not that, fill some buckets, or start a backfire, or dig a hole. Any of those would be acceptable answers, especially if I knew they came from Him. However, it seems that the answer I hear most is the one I'm least excited about. Wait. But Lord, shouldn't I be doing something? Oh, I am doing something. I'm waiting. If you're anything like me, the idea of waiting for anything is, it's frustrating at best, dangerous at worst. And yet, how often is it that this very word we get from God is the one we receive when we're looking for a direction to go? I guess the matter comes down to trust, doesn't it? Can we trust God to direct our path, even when there seems to be no forward progress? In the case of the pilgrim, waiting in obedience saved his life. The winds did indeed shift, and by the time he got to the burn, it had moved on, out of harm's way. The traveler we met the other day was not so lucky. In his zeal to get to the goal, he rushed ahead and was caught in the flames. If there's any takeaway from this week's reading, I hope it's this. Progress in God's sight is not always moving forward. Sometimes it's waiting. If you have a group of folks with whom you're going through this book, I'd encourage you to share with one another those personal experiences, those times when you've been faced with a decision to go are to wait. You might be surprised to learn how many have learned to wait and in the process have discovered real blessings. In the days to come, I pray that your journey will be a joy. And whether you spend it by watching the scenery fly by or whether it's an unchanging vista, remember, like the words in Mark chapter 14, verse 32, that there are times when Jesus says to his followers, "Sit here while I pray." I hope you'll join me again next time. God bless your journey. Y'all come back now. Here. You might consider this as you consider your journey of faith this year. Fasting, from a biblical perspective, is not something that must be endured, but rather it should be an opportunity to explore your physical and spiritual dimensions